The samurai's defiance, a turning point in history. Picture this. A heavy mist blankets a Japanese coastline in the year 1281. Through the fog, thousands of Mongol warriors approach on their ships, the same unstoppable force that had already conquered most of Asia. Yet standing between them and the conquest of Japan are just a few hundred samurai, armed with nothing but their katanas and an unwavering spirit. What happened next would change the course of not just Japanese, but world history forever. The story of the samurai is far more than tales of swordplay and honor codes. It's a saga of how small groups of warriors repeatedly altered the destiny of an entire nation through their actions, decisions, and sometimes their sacrifices. Today, we'll explore 5 moments when samurai warriors didn't just participate in history, they rewrote it. Our first story takes us to those fog-covered shores in 1281 during what would become known as the Mongol invasions, or Genko in Japanese. Kublai Khan, grandson of Genghis Khan and ruler of the largest empire in human history, had set his sights on Japan. His first invasion attempt in 1274 had failed, but now he was back with a massive fleet of 4,400 ships and an army of 140,000 warriors, a force more than double the size of the Spanish Armada that would threaten England 3 centuries later. The Japanese defenders were overwhelmingly outnumbered. The samurai forces, led by warriors like Shoni Kagasuke and Takazaki Suenaga, numbered only in the thousands. But these weren't ordinary soldiers. They were masters of a unique fighting style that would prove crucial in the coming battle. As Mongol ships approached the shores of Hakata Bay, the samurai employed tactics that would seem suicidal to most military commanders. Instead of waiting behind their defensive walls, small groups of samurai warriors would ride small boats out to the Mongol ships, fighting their way aboard in fierce hand-to-hand combat. They would strike fast, cause chaos, and retreat before the Mongols could organize a response. One samurai, Takazaki Suenaga, left us a detailed account of these raids. He described how he would leap aboard enemy ships, his sword cutting through the confusion and terror, before disappearing back into the mist. These hit-and-run tactics kept the massive Mongol fleet off balance and unable to establish a beachhead. But the real game-changer came in the form of what the Japanese would later call kamikaze, the divine wind. A massive typhoon struck the Mongol fleet, destroying thousands of ships and drowning countless soldiers. The samurai saw this as divine intervention, but their earlier guerrilla tactics had already delayed the Mongol landing long enough for the storm to arrive at this crucial moment. This victory had implications far beyond Japan's shores. It marked the first time Mongol expansion had been completely stopped, shattering their aura of invincibility. Japan would remain the only major East Asian nation never conquered by the Mongols, preserving its unique culture and political system. More importantly, it cemented the samurai's position as Japan's warrior elite, leading to centuries of samurai rule that would shape every aspect of Japanese society. But perhaps the most fascinating battle that changed Japan's destiny wasn't fought against foreign invaders at all. Fast forward to the year 1600 to a place called Sekigahara. Here, on a cold October morning, 2 massive samurai armies faced each other in what would become the largest and most decisive samurai battle in history. The Battle of Sekigahara wasn't just another civil war skirmish. It was a contest that would determine Japan's ruler for the next 268 years. On one side stood Tokugawa Ieyasu, a brilliant strategist who had spent decades building alliances and preparing for this moment. Opposing him was Ishida Mitsunari, who led the loyalist forces supporting the young heir of Toyotomi Hideyoshi, Japan's previous ruler. What made this battle truly extraordinary was its scale and the complex web of loyalties and betrayals that would unfold during its crucial hours. Over 160,000 samurai gathered on that misty morning, armed with not just traditional swords and spears, but also with early firearms, a technology that was rapidly changing the nature of Japanese warfare. The fate of Japan would be decided in just 6 hours at Sekigahara. As dawn broke, the air was thick with tension. Tokugawa's Eastern Army of 88,000 faced off against Ishida's Western Army of 82,000. But numbers alone wouldn't determine the outcome. It was what happened next that would change everything. Hidden in the morning mist was a samurai commander named Kobayakawa Hideaki, positioned on Mount Matsuo with 15,500 troops. He had pledged loyalty to Ishida, but Tokugawa had secretly convinced him to switch sides. As the battle raged below, Kobayakawa's troops stood motionless on the mountainside, waiting for the perfect moment to make their move. The turning point came when Tokugawa ordered his arquebusiers, gunners with early firearms, to fire on Kobayakawa's position. This was no attack. It was a signal. Kobayakawa's forces suddenly charged down the mountain, not against Tokugawa as expected, but straight into the flank of Ishida's army. This betrayal triggered a cascade of defections, as other samurai commanders realized which way the wind was blowing and switched their allegiance to Tokugawa. In those few crucial hours, the battle transformed from a closely matched contest into a decisive victory for Tokugawa. By the end of the day, 40,000 samurai lay dead or wounded. Ishida would be captured and executed a few weeks later, and Tokugawa would establish a shogunate that would rule Japan until 1868. But the impact of Sekigahara went far beyond the battlefield. Tokugawa's victory ushered in an era of peace that would last for over 2 centuries. He redistributed land to reward loyal samurai and punish those who had opposed him, fundamentally restructuring Japanese society. The battle marked the end of Japan's warring states period and the beginning of a new age of centralized power, urban development, and cultural flourishing. Yet perhaps the most dramatic moment in samurai history came not from a massive battle, but from a single night of betrayal that would reshape Japan forever. Let's turn back the clock to June 21, 1582, to an incident known as the Honnoji Incident. Picture this. It's just before dawn at the Honnoji Temple in Kyoto. Inside sleeps Oda Nobunaga, the most powerful warlord in Japan, who has nearly succeeded in unifying the country through decades of brilliant military campaigns. He's accompanied by only a small guard force. Most of his army is away on other campaigns. What happens next would be remembered as one of the most shocking betrayals in Japanese history. Approaching through the pre-dawn darkness is an army of 13,000 men led by Akechi Mitsuhide, one of Nobunaga's most trusted generals. This was no enemy force. These were Nobunaga's own troops, turned against him by Mitsuhide for reasons that historians still debate today. Some say Mitsuhide was angry over a personal insult. Others suggest he was protecting the imperial court from Nobunaga's growing power, while still others believe he was simply making an opportunistic grab for power. The attack caught Nobunaga completely by surprise. As arrows with burning tips rained down on the temple, setting it ablaze, Nobunaga realized he was trapped. Rather than surrender or be captured, he chose to commit seppuku, ritual suicide, in accordance with the samurai code of honor. His last words, according to sources, were "Ran no ji gote okashi." Wouldn't it be fun to make a show of this? This single act of betrayal set off a chain of events that would dramatically alter Japan's path to unification. Nobunaga's death created a power vacuum that would be filled by his brilliant general Toyotomi Hideyoshi, who would go on to complete the unification of Japan, but in a very different way than Nobunaga might have. The irony of Mitsuhide's betrayal is that it lasted only 13 days. After killing Nobunaga, he declared himself ruler, but was quickly defeated by Hideyoshi at the Battle of Yamazaki. The common people coined a phrase about his brief reign, Akechi no yo wa mitsu no yo. Akechi's rule lasted only 3 days, though it was actually 13. The consequences of that one night of betrayal would echo through Japanese history. Had Nobunaga lived, Japan's unification might have taken a very different path. He was known for his revolutionary tactics, his openness to new technologies and foreign influence, and his ruthlessness in dealing with religious and political opponents. In contrast, Hideyoshi, while equally brilliant, would take Japan in a more traditional direction, implementing policies that would eventually lead to Japan's period of isolation. While battles and betrayals shaped Japan's political landscape, it was a tale of loyalty and revenge that would define the very soul of samurai culture for centuries to come. On a snowy morning in December 1702, 47 samurai would demonstrate to the world what true loyalty meant and create a legacy that still resonates today. These men were the former retainers of Lord Asano of Akko, who had been forced to commit ritual suicide after drawing his sword against a court official named Kira within Edo Castle. This official, Kira, had repeatedly insulted and goaded Asano, finally provoking him into an attack, which was exactly what Kira had wanted. The punishment was swift. Asano was ordered to commit seppuku, his lands were confiscated, and his samurai were disbanded, becoming masterless samurai known as ronin. But rather than accept this fate, these 47 samurai spent the next year planning an impossible revenge. Led by Oishi Kuranosuke, they dispersed across Japan, taking on disguises and menial jobs. Some became merchants, others laborers, and Oishi himself appeared to descend into a life of drunkenness and debauchery in Kyoto's pleasure districts. This was all an elaborate ruse. They were waiting, watching, and planning while deliberately throwing off any suspicion that they might be plotting revenge. They knew that Kira had spies watching them, so they had to make their apparent fall from samurai dignity completely convincing. On the night of December 14th, 1702, in the middle of a heavy snowfall, these 47 samurai finally made their move. They launched a coordinated attack on Kira's mansion in Edo, fighting their way through his guards with military precision. When they finally cornered Kira, they offered him the chance to commit seppuku, the same honorable death granted to their lord. When he refused, they executed him. The revenge complete, the 47 samurai walked through the snowy streets of Edo to their lord's grave at Sengaku-ji Temple, where they placed Kira's head as an offering. They then surrendered themselves to the authorities, knowing full well that their actions, though politically popular, were still illegal under the strict laws of the Tokugawa shogunate. The government faced a difficult decision. The samurai had clearly broken the law, but they had also followed the highest principles of Bushido, the way of the warrior. In the end, they were sentenced to commit seppuku, but they were allowed to die with honor as samurai rather than be executed as criminals. This event, known as the Akko Incident, or the Tale of the 47 Ronin, became the ultimate expression of samurai loyalty and sacrifice. It has been retold countless times in plays, books, and films, shaping how both Japanese and foreigners understand samurai values. Even today, thousands of people visit Sengaku-ji Temple annually to pay respects at the graves of these loyal warriors. But our final story brings us to the end of the samurai era itself, the Boshin War of 1868-1869. This was more than just another civil war. It was a clash between two very different visions of Japan's future. On one side stood the forces of the Tokugawa shogunate, trying to preserve the traditional samurai-led society. On the other were the imperial forces, backed by samurai who paradoxically fought to end their own privileged status in favor of modernization. The most dramatic moment came during the Battle of Toba Fushimi, where traditional samurai warfare met modern military technology head-on. The imperial forces, equipped with modern rifles and artillery, faced off against shogunate troops still relying heavily on swords and traditional tactics. The result was decisive. The modern weapons triumphed, and with them a new era for Japan began. Yet even in defeat, the samurai spirit showed its most noble aspects. In the following months, the Tokugawa forces retreated north, making their last stand in Hokkaido. Led by Admiral Enomoto Takeaki, these final samurai created the Republic of Ezo, Japan's first experiment with democracy, even as they fought to preserve traditional values. The end came in May 1869 with the Battle of Hakodate. The last samurai fought with a combination of traditional valor and modern weapons, but they couldn't stop the tide of history. When Enomoto surrendered, he did so not just for himself, but for the entire samurai class that had ruled Japan for nearly 700 years. These 5 moments, the Mongol invasions, Sekigahara, the Honnoji incident, the 47 Ronin, and the Boshin War, demonstrate how samurai shaped not just military victories and defeats, but the very soul of a nation. Their influence extends far beyond the battlefield into art, philosophy, and the very essence of what it means to live with honor and purpose. Their legacy lives on not just in Japan, but wherever people value loyalty, honor, and the courage to stand up for one's beliefs, even in the face of overwhelming odds. The samurai may have disappeared from the battlefield, but their spirit continues to inspire people around the world. Thank you for watching this exploration of how samurai changed history. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on more fascinating stories from Japanese history. Leave a comment below letting us know which of these historical moments you found most interesting, and what other aspects of samurai history you'd like to learn about in future videos.